area.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel. Today, I am joined by Stel Stylianou. I hope I pronounced that right. We
Dead
practiced right
on, mate.
before.
Dead on.
Awesome. All right, that's very cool. So we are going to do an interview here on the Bros Talking Soccer YouTube channel. I have the YouTube up in the background. Please say hello to us as we go along here. Interact with us. If you have comments, questions, or anything like that, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll jump right into this podcast as long as you're good, Stel.
All good, mate.
All right, let's do it. What's going on, everyone? I'd like to welcome Stel Stylianou onto the podcast right now. Stel lives in the UK and is host of the Shoot the Defense podcast, as well as being head of sports media at our partner, FNX.Network. Stel, welcome to Bros Talking Soccer. How you doing today?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And Happy New Year to you and your listeners.
Thank you very much. Yes, Happy New Year to everybody. We are recording on January 1st, so this is our first podcast of the new year. So thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Stel, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself before we get into kind of the nitty gritty of, soccer fandom and podcasts and all that? So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
What do you need to know, really?
So you're from the UK, right?
Oh, yeah. So I'm based in London, a
Okay.
place called Enfield. I've lived here most of my life. Just working and family life and all that kind of stuff. The same old stuff as you see day to day. Nothing really special going on, really. So,
All right, cool. And so do you do podcasting and all the stuff you're involved with soccer, 100% of your time, or do you have
no,
like
not
side
really.
jobs you do it on the side?
No. This is something I've been doing as a hobby for the past 6 years, I'd say. It started back in 2012 during the Euros. In fact, it was funny because at the time I'd only just started getting into podcasts. So I listened to a lot of stuff, so whether it be Joe Rogan or Wrestling Soup or all these other sports and all that kind of stuff. And I was about to watch Euro 2012. I can't remember which game it was actually. I think it was the final between Spain and Italy, I believe. And I was with a friend of mine, and as you do with your mates, you talk about football and you always argue about things that you said and all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, why don't we just record our conversation? Because I said something, he didn't agree with me, and it just went on from there. I thought, well, why don't we just turn it into a podcast? And it's weird how it started because it was three of us originally just talking about football, giving our opinions, our views, very slanderous stuff as well, as you would with your mates. And then I thought, let me just see how it goes. And we went from 3 listeners on YouTube to about 20 odd thousand through up between iTunes, Audio Boom, and FNX. And it was all in the space of 4 years. I spoke to a gentleman called Phil Brown, who's a really good friend of mine. Phil owns the Beyond the Pitch network. He did some work with NBC, and he gave me some advice on how to switch it up, what I need to do to improve it. And I took his advice and I ran with it, really. And I made it a PG show, which picked up really well. Got a lot of guests on. I think the part that actually helped us break through was getting a guy called Leon Knight on. Now, you guys probably don't know him, but Leon used to play for Chelsea. He's actually a Brighton legend, but he's very, very outspoken on Twitter, very controversial. And I had him on the show for an interview, and he said a lot of things about Neil Warnock, said a lot of things about previous managers that he played under. And he actually fell out with Jamie O'Hara. I don't know if you remember him. He used to play for Spurs back in the day, but he fell out with him in a very big way. It was all online as well. And that kind of blew Leon up. And I got him to do a segment for me every month called Night Vision. And he went crazy. Through doing this, I met Tony Bellew. I don't know if you know Tony Bellew, the boxer that was in Creed.
Okay. No, so I'm
And
not too up on the boxing game.
No, well, I don't know if
No.
you've seen the film Creed, the latest. Well, they've done a Creed 2 now, but the first one, he was actually in it. He starred in it, and I got him on the show through Leon because Tony's an Everton fan, and Leon is a good friend of his. So we did a show together, what I call the Super Show. So I had both of them at each other talking about football. One's an Arsenal fan, one's an Everton fan, and it just blew up from there. And it's remarkable how I've gone from sitting in my living room talking to my mates about football to sitting in my living room interviewing people that have been in Hollywood, that have, one of my biggest interviews was Art Davey, that co-founded the UFC. And like I said, it's just gone from strength to strength, and again, I can't thank everyone that's contributed and helped out. It's crazy how it blows up, mate. Honestly, and you just gotta keep plugging away, be confident in what you're doing, and don't let your head drop. And that's the best advice I can give anyone. And I've just been totally going off on a tangent, haven't I?
No, I mean, that was all fantastic. I mean, that answered a lot of the questions that I had. So you started
Oh,
in 2012, kind of,
yep.
with your mates. And so it's been, what is that, 7 years? Well, six and
Yeah,
a
it's
half
good.
years or
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It's gone. Time
And
flies, mate.
yeah, it really does. So is Shoot the Defense, is that what it always was? Did you guys
Yeah,
go through any
yeah.
rebrands? No, it's just been that.
It's just been that. The funny
That's
thing,
awesome.
I can't actually believe I'm admitting this, but when I first thought of the name, I was with my friend, and I, I was joking about another friend of ours that had an STD at the time, and I said, "Yeah, Shoot the Defense." And he goes, "That's a great name." I was like, "Yeah, go on, let's run with it."
Oh
So I'm not
man.
going to mention any names as to who my mate was at the time, but he knows the joke. So he's saying to me, "Well, if you ever make it big, then I want some royalties from you." I'm like, right, let's see.
Well, that is fantastic behind the scenes look there. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Very cool stuff, and that it's awesome to hear kind of the backstory, how you guys have grown, and just kind of keeping at it, and just how things have evolved. So it wasn't like you set out, from a young age to be, breaking into the podcasting world, right? It was just kind of a natural kind of evolution.
Yeah, well, do you know what? When I'm 38 now, and when I was at school, high school, as you guys call it, we call it secondary school. I wanted to be a journalist, but at the time, the only way you could really get involved in that industry or get into the media was to write a letter to the BBC, which I'm sure you guys have heard of, or these other big corporations. But back then, you're right. You write a letter, and you'd be lucky to even get a response. So, I tried to get work experience. I did some work experience at the Sci-Fi Channel, which, again, when I was 16, 17, that's the closest thing I ever got to any media work. And that was just being a runner, delivering coffees and doing photocopying. So there wasn't anything media related. And I just gave up. And then fast forward to 2012, here comes social media and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and these different ways of getting your voice across. You got bloggers, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, let me just try delve into it. And here I am. It's crazy. If you'd have told me, 6 years ago that I would be one day interviewing one of the world's most expensive footballers, i.e., Paul Pogba, I'd have laughed in your face. But I did that for NBC last year.
Wow.
So yeah, it was crazy. It's crazy how things work out. But again, it just goes back to believing in yourself and proving the doubters wrong, not just for yourself, but to rub their noses in it.
I love it. I love it. I love that this is super motivational. I love that we're getting 2019 started with this interview. So that's really cool. And that kind of
Thank you.
touches on another question that I had. So it seems like you had desires to break into kind of the media landscape, but you didn't see a way through. And then the convergence of all these different platforms is how you kind of broke in. Did you have or have you developed a strategy, or is it more just simple kind of grind it out, or like do you target specific people? Is it more like you're just trying to build relationships? Is there anything you've done specifically to get an interview with, whether it's Paul Pogba or any of the other people that you mentioned before?
Well, the Paul Pogba one just came out of the blue because I was at work. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and my friend Phil, who I mentioned earlier, was working at NBC at the time. He actually had an agreement with NBC, and he texted me about 4 o'clock in the afternoon saying, "Stel, what are you doing tonight?" I'm like, "Well, nothing planned." He goes, "Look, I know you live in London. Paul Pogba is going to be at the Adidas store on Oxford Circus, and I've got 10 minutes with an interview with him. Can you do it for me?" I was like, "Yeah, you don't have to ask me twice, mate," kind of thing. So, he arranged it all. He gave me his personal assistant's number. I contacted her. She said, "Yeah, come down 8 o'clock. Speak to so and so. We'll give you a wristband, whatever." And I was there, and I was with Pogba's mum. I was with his best mate, while Pogba was doing this whole, public relations stuff with Dele Alli. They were taking questions and answering, and doing everything because they were launching the new Predator boot. And they're doing all the fancy damn marketing stuff. And yeah, I interviewed Paul Pogba for 10 minutes in an office in the Adidas stock room, would you believe? And yeah, that was amazing for me because I'm a Man United fan. And at the time, Paul Pogba hadn't fallen out with Mourinho. Then it wasn't a big hoo-ha back then. And I was asking questions like, how would you feel about being a future United captain? Because I believe that he had the potential to be. And lo and behold, 4 or 5 months later, he had the captain's armband. But, that was my biggest interview. And going back to what you asked about a strategy, that at first I thought, target a certain audience, target the older generation, because I said at the time I was 31, 32. And I thought, well, you got to look for a certain demographic. But as time's gone on and you learn more about the way social media works, you've got people like KSI, True Geordie, the Vujinic and all these other guys that have got a young demographic. And I don't fill that quota because A, I'm not young. B, I'm not with the youngsters, so to speak. And C, if I tried doing anything like that, that wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be a natural thing. It wouldn't be organic as what the show is now. And what I like to do is try to look into the game from a different perspective. We do review shows, i.e., Premier League reviews. We do European reviews, but we also throw in a few quizzes. But it's not just about the content, it's about the guests that we have on. I don't want anyone... Look, put it this way, if I was going to get someone like, hypothetically speaking, like a Cristiano Ronaldo, he wouldn't be able to say certain things. Whereas the guests that I do get on, whether they be podcasters or ex-pros or journalists, they're able to say things that they want to say as opposed to being gagged. So I didn't really have a tactic on how to break into it. But then I discovered something called LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a remarkable tool for networking and getting your content out there. I've got over 3,000 connections on LinkedIn. I don't know many of them, to be fair, from a personal level, but they are connected in certain ways to people that I know. And it really has helped me get interviews with, people that played in MLS or people that played in USL or even, across Europe. So you've always got to try doing something different, but that's very difficult when time isn't on your side, if that makes sense. But the way I see it, I love the game, and I'm not going to stop doing this until I get bored.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And I think that's how we actually got first connected, was through LinkedIn. And then, we've developed a relationship through Twitter and, I joined the FNX.Network. So, that's kind of how we got connected as well. So with the Pogba interview, it seems like it was kind of last minute, which is obviously very different. Did you have time to prepare questions? Did you have to ask that guy's questions? How did that kind of process work?
The thing is, because, Phil's a United fan as well, and he said to me, look, you know exactly what to ask. He goes, the only thing I want from you is to find out something about the Real Madrid deal that could have happened. And I knew exactly what to ask him. Put this way, I'd been doing this for 4 or 5 years anyway. So I'd already grabbed interviews with ex-pros, with, current pros, with coaches. I mean, I interviewed people, ex-pros that had been sexually abused as youngsters. I attended the Save Association press launch. And I don't know if you know about the Save Association launch, but you got someone called Paul Stewart that used to play for Spurs. Ian Ackley used to play for Man City. Derek Bell, David White was at Man City. These guys were all sexually abused when they were youngsters by their coach. So they created this charity for survivors of sexual abuse. So I've kind of I've interviewed people that have got very touchy subjects or things that are very close to people's hearts, and I know what to say and what not to say, so to speak. Plus, I was kind of screened by Pogba's personal assistant at the time, saying, you can't ask this, which is fine because that's not a problem. So I knew what to ask. I knew exactly what to put his way, and it went pretty well. I mean, a lot of his sound bites or his quotes were in Esquire magazine, on ESPN's website, on Sky Sports. So, the questions I asked seemed to come across well because they wouldn't have been printed by a lot of these publications. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's a really cool story. So steering back to, your content and your podcast, I know you definitely host the thing, but I'm always fascinated by this because, I'm sort of a one-man operation over here. My brothers are involved in the podcast, but I wear a lot of hats with editing, with putting together,
Join the club.
Exactly. So I wanted to know kind of your roles with your podcast and kind of how you manage all of that with, juggling, family responsibilities and then other jobs and whatnot. So just curious to hear kind of your experiences learning everything on the job. Did you take any trainings? Have you, with the internet's a powerful thing, just researching for yourself, just be curious to learn about,
Oh,
how
mate,
you learned.
I'll tell you what, if you listen to the original shows that we did back in 2012, you'd think this is absolutely garbage. Honestly, we had no structure whatsoever. Our shows were going 3 or 4 hours long, and we're just talking nonsense. I mean, okay, you're talking, you got your opinions, you got your views and all that kind of stuff. But I said there was no structure. It was like, yeah, let's talk about this game. Oh, what did you make of it? Oh, I didn't see that bit. What were you talking about? And then it was crud. It was horrible. But at the same time, when I listen back on it, I think, well, look how far we've come, um, in terms of the content, in terms of the quality, in terms of how it runs, how we do everything. And no, it was difficult at first because I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't know what I was doing, but it comes with experience, mate. And when you start learning certain things, you pick up new ideas, and you listen to other shows, and you get ideas on how they do things, and you think, well, let me try this, and if that doesn't work, I'll try something else. It's all trial and error at the end of the day. It's the same with everything, So in terms of time and working things out, I try to do it when my daughter's asleep. She's 4 years old. So I started doing this before she was born. Fortunately, she's very good at sleeping. So once her head hits that pillow, that's it. And she rarely wakes up. You might hear her sometimes in the background crying upstairs, and I'll be like, lads, I need to pause this. I'm going to go upstairs and sort it out. And then obviously I do the editing afterwards. So that's not added in it. But yeah, I'll do it at certain times, whether it be after 9 p.m. UK time. There have been times I've been doing shows at 4 a.m. because I've had to interview someone from Australia, or I've had to interview someone in India. And obviously the time difference has been difficult. I like doing shows when I'm talking to people in the States, because you guys are a few hours behind. So I can do a show at maybe 10 p.m, whereas it's a different time to you guys. Whereas if I do interview someone in Australia, I'll have to be doing it maybe midnight to say 4 a.m, because they're 9 or 10 hours ahead. Mm-hmm. So it can be a bit tricky. So it's all about balancing your time. Fortunately, I've got a job that maybe I might start midday some days. I might start at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I might be doing a late shift, or might be doing an early shift. So I kind of work my interviews on my show schedule, on my work schedule as well. So it's all about fitting it in. So listen, the way I see it, if you really want to do this and make a go of it, you'll find the time to do it. I've done interviews with certain footballers in my car, because I've just finished work and I don't have enough time to get home and prepare it, but I've got my recording equipment there. Unfortunately, I've got a handset that I can put it on loudspeaker and it sounds pretty good. I interviewed a guy called Benito Carbone. The name probably doesn't ring any bells for you, but he's an Italian footballer that used to play in the Premier League. He played for Napoli with Cannavaro back in the day. And he's done quite a lot in the Premier League. I interviewed him in my car outside my work because I didn't have the time to get home and prepare everything. I had the notes printed out anyway, so I knew what to ask him. So I recorded it. I had another device on me that I could record it. I used a voice recorder on it, and I went home and edited it, and it sounded absolutely fine. I was listening to it the other day, actually, funny enough, and I was like, wow, it actually sounded better than what I thought. And that was, 3 years ago? So, yeah.
So you always got to be prepared. So that makes sense.
Mate, yeah, 100%, 100%. But see, this is the thing. The more you do it, the more it comes naturally. I could do an interview with someone. I've got an interview booked with someone on Thursday. Now, I kind of know what to ask him because I kind of know about his background anyway. But it always helps to do your research to see if they've done interviews before, because you could take some of their quotes from that and question them about it, and then obviously you can credit the original source, and then you can tweet them, and then hopefully they would retweet it because, well, you've credited them their article in the first place. So again, that's also part of networking. So yeah, I rabbit on too much, mate. Honestly, you need to tell me to shut up.
No, I love it. I mean, these are great tips, and we have a lot of different listeners. Some of them have their own podcasts, their own content, and so while this is really helpful for me, I think it's also really helpful and interesting for listeners as well. So I'm loving it, man.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So let's talk a little bit more about your fandom. So you touched on that you're a United fan. Given your age, you were kind of growing up in the heyday of Sir Alex and all of that. Just curious how you became a United fan. Did you have connections to the area? Just wanted to know a little bit about that, and then we can touch on your feelings on how this season is going. So I'd love to touch on that as well.
The funny thing is, I started supporting United back in 88, 89, and we weren't that good, to be fair. We weren't that good at all. But I had a friend at school that's a United fan, And I kind of followed him. My dad isn't really a massive football fan, but the team he supports United as well because of what happened in Munich. You always used to talk about George Best and Dennis Law and Charlton and all these other players, but he wasn't fully into it. I mean, I struggled to get him to games when I had my season ticket. He just didn't want to know, but that's because it was like a 3.5 hour drive from London to Manchester, and my dad is claustrophobic, so sitting in the car for that long doesn't help him much. But yeah, so I started supporting them when I was younger. When I'm talking maybe 5 or 6 years old, I supported every team under the sun because I knew nothing about the game. Follow this friend, support that one. And again, I didn't know anything about it. But when I came to like 8 or 9, back at the back end of my junior school tenure, it was like, yeah, I need to pick a team. And my mate Jan, a long-time friend of mine, we had season tickets together. We sat next to each other. We went everywhere. We went to Moscow in 2008 for the Champions League final. We did Barcelona. We did everything together as United fans. And, that's where I started supporting them. So, yeah.
That's incredible. Well, that's a really cool story. And then this season has been obviously very up and down.
Say the least.
I don't want to, I'm not trying to rub anything in. I'm just interested
mate,
to
honestly,
hear.
it's fine. You know what? To be honest, I saw it coming back when the Glazers took over in 2005. So it's fine. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously most listeners of this know how United season has kind of gone. What's your take on the whole Jose, how he handled everything, specifically how he treated players in the media, and then, him leaving? What do you expect for the future? Do you think Solskjaer will stay on? Do you think they'll get a different manager? What do you think is going to happen there?
It's a difficult one because I wanted Jose Mourinho to take over when Ferguson retired. I thought he was the perfect man at the time. He just lost the Chelsea job. Obviously, he fell out with the players then. And at the time, while I believe, and I still believe, that squad that won the league under Ferguson that last season, it was fairly average. I think we had a lot of experienced players there that Jose could have worked with and got a couple more years out of them. Your Rio Ferdinands, your Paul Scholeses, your Vidic and all that. Appointing David Moyes was always going to be a mess. It really was. I mean, the guy had no credentials whatsoever. And I don't care what people say. He took Everton to 4th place in the Premier League. Big deal. That doesn't impress me. Show me your CV, mate. He hasn't won anything. He won the League Two with Preston or something like that. And this is the mentality that a lot of players had because, he comes into the dressing room. The first thing he does is he completely restructures the backroom staff, which was the first mistake he made. The second mistake he made was telling Rio Ferdinand to watch DVDs of Phil Jagielka on how to defend. I mean, you're telling a guy that's won Champions Leagues, Premier Leagues, you name it, to compare him to Phil Jagielka. I mean, it's ridiculous. And there's other things that David Moyes did in the background, which he lost a lot of respect the moment he came in because of his antics. But I think I was really disappointed with the way it worked out with Jose Mourinho. I wanted it to be all happy days and winning trophies. And he won 2 trophies in his first season, which was great. But let's be honest, mate, his man management was atrocious in the back end of his United tenure. Throwing players under the bus. Yeah, granted, I can see why he dropped Pogba. I can see why he had to go at Luke Shaw for his weight. I get it. I'm old school in my ways. But at the same time, if you look at the most successful managers at the moment in modern day, they're not like that. It's very rare to see Klopp or Guardiola really chastise their players in public. And I think with Jose, he was getting very frustrated. He didn't get on with Ed Woodward. He fell out with the board. It didn't help that Woodward was leaking a lot of stuff to the press. But I'm not going to go into that because I could go on all day, to be fair. But bringing Solskjaer in is a masterstroke by the owners, and I hate to admit it, but it's not because they care about the club. It's because the moment Jose Mourinho was sacked, the club's value went up $150 million on the New York Stock Exchange. And they know that by keeping Jose Mourinho at the club's value would go down, the club's league position would drop even more, and they wouldn't get as much money as they'd like when they decide to sell the club, which I hear is imminent. I know there's interest from the Saudis. So there's a possibility.
How'd you feel about that?
Oh, mate, you know what? People talk about the human rights in Saudi Arabia, but let's be honest, every nation you go to has got some form of nonsense going on out there, some form of underhanded tactics by politicians and whatnot. So I couldn't care less. If the Saudis came in and bought United and made United a superpower again, like what the Arabs have done at Man City. I do not care. I really don't care. Morals go out the window when it comes down to it. I mean, look at what the Glazers have done to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for Christ's sake. They've been a nothing team since they won the Super Bowl. So, these are owners that don't care about clubs. They're just here to make money at the end of the day. Whereas I know the Saudis would want to leave a legacy. And let's be honest, it's, for not want too many words, it's a penis measuring contest in the Middle East, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, or United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. They all want to be the best and they're competing against each other. So what are they doing? They're buying the best clubs. They're pumping money into them. And they're trying to dominate the world, and that's the way it is. You can't go against it. It is what it is. Arsenal got Stan Kroenke there. I'm pretty sure if the Saudis came in looking for Arsenal, a lot of Arsenal fans would be like, yeah, well, human rights go out the window when we've got a chance of winning the Champions League. So yeah,
fair enough. And what do you think's next for Jose?
I'll tell you what, he'll be at Real Madrid in the summer.
You think?
He'll be at Real Madrid in the summer, and Hazard will be with him as well.
That'd be an interesting, because they really, at least from my perspective across the ocean, it seemed like they had a falling out at the end of their time at Chelsea. So do you think that could work at Real Madrid?
I don't think they fell out at all. I mean, we've seen quotes from Hazard saying that, he really respects Jose Mourinho. And I don't know. The thing is, with Pogba and Mourinho, that was blatantly obvious. We could see it was all public. It was all done in public. Whereas at Chelsea, we didn't really hear too much happening internally. I know that there was a spat between John Terry and Jose Mourinho the first time he got sacked at Chelsea. But this second time, I think he completely lost the dressing room. I think the board, again, didn't help Mourinho. Funny, that's like the third or fourth time Jose Mourinho's lost his job because he's fallen out with the board more than the players. But look, you don't become a bad manager overnight. He won 2 trophies in his first season for us. We came second last season in a league that City absolutely stormed. No one came close to them, and for us to come second, I don't really read too much into what Jose said about being one of his best managerial achievements. I think he was just saying that to up his stock a little bit more, really. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, he's still a top class manager. You can't knock his CV. But the problem is, are his methods too archaic? We saw Fabio Capello come to England and manage the national team, and he couldn't cope with the big personalities because you had people like Ferdinand, Lampard, Gerrard, Rooney, all these guys going behind his back saying, well, we're not going to do these extra training sessions. Why should we? Look who we are. And that's the problem that a lot of these managers have these days that are very old in their attitude or their mentality, because the players rule the roost nowadays. It's not about the managers. I mean, United, prime example, Paul Pogba. He's such a cash cow to the club. It's unbelievable. He gets a lot of stick for his off-the-field activity, but he has to do it because it's brand Pogba. And that's what Adidas want. So it is what it is. I'm sure you guys have seen it with LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. And I'm sure if Michael Jordan was still playing basketball these days, he'd be an even bigger cash cow to the Chicago Bulls or Nike. So that's the way the game's gone, I'm afraid.
Absolutely, yeah. You're spot on there. So Dan on YouTube asked, do you think Solskjaer will make it to next season, or is that out of the question? What do you think?
I'm not ruling out just yet, but it's easy to say he's a contender because of how well we're doing, But at the same time, if we'd have brought in anyone else, I'm pretty sure the players would have stepped up because they weren't playing for the manager. But then again, Solskjaer is a legend at United, and the players have to perform for him because the fans will turn. The fans were booing, don't forget, at halftime when we were losing. The fans were backing Jose Mourinho because Mourinho was saying the right things. Ole's come in. He's brought in Mike Phelan. He's changed a little bit of the backroom staff. He's obviously given the whole place a lift. Knowing from what I know, people based at the club were saying, even people, the tea ladies, the staff around the club, everyone's happy now. Everyone's talking to each other. There isn't this cloud around the club now. I wouldn't rule it out, but at the same time, if we do get new owners, I'm sure they will have their own idea on who to bring in. And let's be honest, if the Glazers still hold the club next season, it makes perfect financial sense for them to keep Solskjaer, because I think it only cost them like $4 million to buy him out of his mold contract. So, why would they want to spend 30-40 million buying Pochettino out of his contract when they can do it for, I don't know, a quarter of the price to bring in Solskjaer? I don't know.
But is that like so I want to ask a couple other questions, but on that point, I mean, is Solskjaer the same as Pochettino? I know obviously the monetary thing is a little bit different, but Pochettino has just proven himself in the Premier League, and Solskjaer is a legend at United, but from a managerial perspective, I mean, the credentials aren't the same, right? Or
No,
do you just
they're not the same. Look, Solskjaer's won a title for a start. There's a difference. He's won the Norwegian title. I don't think Pochettino's actually even won anything. But you know, I just listen. It's a different scenario because Solskjaer's a club legend. So one way or the other, the players have to turn up. The difference is this just a novelty? Do you know what I mean? Is this just romanticism? Every time we've seen a manager sacked at United the past few years, it's always, I'll bring Cantona in, I'll bring Laurent Blanc because he knows about the club. Laurent Blanc was only at the club for maybe a season and a half, 2 seasons. He doesn't know anything about the club's DNA. Cantona, yeah, but he's an actor. He's not a coach. You know, Peter Schmeichel was turning around saying, I want to be director of football. Peter Schmeichel has been disconnected from the club since 1999. He hasn't done anything with the club since. So, you know, if anything, he should be at Man City because the last English club he played for. Or is it Aston Villa? Aston Villa. So I don't know. It's all well and good at the moment because, as I said, it's the romanticism. It's this whole like, oh wow, it's a former club legend and he's come back to save the sinking ship. But how long will it last? I mean, we don't know when the next bad result. It might be Newcastle in a couple of days' time. We might lose that game. It's like, wait, hang about. Well, there you go. You know, the new manager bounce is done, and all of a sudden, you know, the defensive frailties, which you've seen time and time again, the cohesion at the back, you know, silly mistakes, they're creeping back in. So you just don't know. I mean, at this moment in time, Pochettino is the only is the only realistic man that we can bring in for the long term because we've seen what he's done at Spurs. He's made them title contenders for a start. But again, we don't know the full facts. We don't know if we're going to buy his contract. We don't know if Levy is going to allow him to talk to us. And we don't even know if he wants to leave Spurs. They've got a new stadium. They're in a better position than us in terms of winning the league. They've got a better position in terms of winning the Champions League. They've got an easier match, so to speak, if you can say Dortmund is easy in comparison to Paris Saint-Germain. So why would he want to leave Spurs? And let's be honest, will he be backed financially at United? We don't know. Again, there's so many questions. There's more questions than answers, really.
Absolutely, yeah. So, you know, I'm sure we could do a whole podcast on that whole world, but let's put a pin in that and let's get to some of our Twitter questions. So the first one is from @SoccerSwap. So he wanted to know your Champions League predictions as well as mine. So I got the list here. Let's do kind of rapid fire, maybe a couple comments about each. So first one, Schalke versus City. Who you think's going through in that match?
I think City. And it'll be easy for them. To be fair, this isn't a disrespect to Schalke, but you know, Man City will turn it up. They have to. And I think Guardiola knows he has to win the Champions League because he'll be labelled a failure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that one. Atletico versus Juve.
This is the most interesting one out of the whole phase, as far as I'm concerned. You've got two teams that are very organised, very disciplined defensively, very good at going forward. I think I think Juventus will have more in the tank, to be fair. They've got Cristiano Ronaldo for a start. They're very good going forward, and Mandzukic is another dark horse here. Don't get me wrong, Griezmann's a fantastic footballer, as is Saul, as is Koke, but I don't know. I just think Juventus will have a bit too much for him.
I'm gonna agree with you. Yeah, I think Juve's getting through in that one. All right, your team, United versus PSG.
Well, first and foremost, we haven't kept a clean sheet since October, I think. So on that basis, we're going to concede at least one goal per game. So that means we need at least 3 goals over those 2 legs to go through. Can we do it? I don't see why not. Will we do it? Difficult to say. I think, again, I touched on it before. Defensively, we're appalling. We're really bad. We got the appalling Smalling for a start. Phil Jones is just dreadful. Eric Bailly is the most... He's physical, he's quick, but he's unintelligent. And we saw his challenge the other day. Why are you making that tackle when you're 3-0 up or 3-1 up? It doesn't make sense. So, yeah, we need to change drastically defensively. I'm not ruling it out, but at this moment in time, I can only see Mbappe, Cavani and Neymar ripping us to shreds.
Yeah, I got PSG moving through in that tie. All right, Tottenham versus Dortmund. This is another one that I really like. I hope it's as offensive as it looks on paper. But what do you think is going to happen in that tie?
Um, Difficult to say. Spurs, they lost the other day against Wolves. A very Spursy performance. At Wembley in the Champions League. The thing is, when you go to a place like Wembley or when you go to a new stadium, you kind of get up for it, because it's a new ground. It's just this aura about the place, and teams go to Wembley thinking that they can get something. But at the same time, Spurs have kind of made Wembley their home. They're used to playing there now. But in terms of the game, I think if Spurs can avoid making any defensive mistakes that they've done recently, they'll go through. Dortmund isn't an easy place to go to, but I'm not convinced about them. I know they're top of the Bundesliga and it's a very competitive league, but at the same time, I'm still not convinced about them. I'm really not. And they breezed past their group, didn't they, Dortmund? But yeah, you just never know. They've had the winter break, which is probably a good thing for them because they got a week off or week and a half. But I think Spurs might edge it.
All right, that's the first one we're going to disagree. I actually like Dortmund to get through in that tie. All right, next one is Lyon versus Barcelona. What do you think's happening there?
Well, Leon got them. Didn't they get through with like 4 draws or something in their group? So they weren't winning too many games. I know they beat City. I think Barca will be a bit too strong for them going forward. When you've got Messi, anything is possible. But then again, Depay's been doing well at Lyon, so you never know. But yeah, I think it's Barca all the way for me.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that as well. Roma versus Porto.
Roma have been a bit indifferent recently. Di Francesco's under a lot of pressure. They're not getting that many goals. They're heavily reliant on Dzeko. El Shaarawy isn't pulling his weight as far as I'm concerned. And they're kind of missing Nainggolan. I think they're missing him a little bit. But yeah, I think Roma will edge it. They'll edge it.
I think so too. I can't claim to know much about Porto, but I'm the same boat. I think Roma will find a way to get
Well,
through there.
Porto, they got past the group phase. They're in a very it's more like a 2-team league, the Portuguese league at the moment, and I don't see them firing on all cylinders. I don't know. I think Roma will edge it.
All right, next one, Ajax versus Madrid.
Oh, this could be the shock of the round. This could be the shock because Real Madrid again, like Roma, they've been very indifferent. Losing Cristiano Ronaldo was a massive, massive deal. How can you replace 60 goals a season? It's so difficult. They haven't invested wisely as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of trouble in the dressing room. We're hearing Isco linked with a move. Ramos is piping up a bit. I don't know. I think this will be the shock because Ajax have done incredibly well in this competition so far, and they show no fear either. So yeah, I think Ajax might nick it.
I like it. I like it. Bold predictions here. I am not quite as bold, so I'm gonna say Madrid gets through, but I would love to see Ajax knock them off. I think that would be quite a story.
Well, they gave Bayern Munich a scare, didn't they, in the
They
group
did.
phase?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. They're not a
I
pushover.
wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't rule it out. But at the same time, it's a Champions League, and Real Madrid always seem to step up when they need to in this competition. Man, it's their tournament. It's their tournament.
Exactly. That's why it's tough for me to pick against them. All right, last game, Liverpool versus Bayern. That should be a hell of a tie as well. Who do you have coming through there?
I think Liverpool will absolutely storm them. I
Yeah.
really do. Yeah, if Liverpool can stay injury free, the thing is, I don't know if Van Dijk's suspended for the first leg. I'm not sure. You might have to correct me on that one, but I think if Liverpool are fully fit and they're still playing the football that they're playing now, they'll absolutely storm Bayern Munich because Bayern Munich don't have the legs. They really don't have the legs to cope with what Liverpool have. I mean, they're struggling in the Bundesliga. A lot of their players aren't playing for Kovac. Funny that. It seems to happen with Bayern Munich when they bring in a manager that the players don't like. The players down tools. Robben has decided that he's going to leave at the end of the season. Ribery is the wrong end of 30. He's actually 35 now, isn't he? 35, 36. Gnabry's been a revelation for him this season. But if they can keep Thiago quiet, then I think Liverpool will storm them. I really do.
I think and hope so. So I'm a Liverpool supporter, so I'm not sure if you
Boo.
knew that about me. Yeah. And I just confirmed it as well as Dan. So Van Dijk is suspended that first leg, and we haven't seen Liverpool play without Van Dijk, or at least not really be challenged. So that is a huge loss for them. And so I'm concerned about
It
that.
is, but if Joe Gomez is back and fit, I think he's a very adequate replacement. I think I hate to admit, and I've said it on Talksport the other day, in fact, the other month when I went on, he's the closest player this country has had to Rio Ferdinand in the past 4 or 5 years. I think that the kid is a fantastic player. The way he reads the game, his distribution of the ball, his vision. That's not even including the physicality and the pace. That's just like a cliche when it comes to a lot of young footballers. Pace, power. He's got that in abundance, but he's got a brain as well, and he's learning so much very quickly. Something that Rio did when he was at Leeds and West Ham. So yeah, he'll be a player for Liverpool if they can hang on to him.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. My only concern is Van Dijk does so much organizationally and with his mouth. I haven't seen that from Gomez, but that's because he's always been there with Van Dijk. Maybe he can serve that role, but for me, Van Dijk, in addition to everything else he brings, that organizational and just that confidence he instills in all the other players is a really tough loss. So I don't know,
Of
but I
course,
still have,
it
yeah.
rubs off on players. I mentioned Laurent Blanc earlier at United, and I'm sure if you ask John O'Shea, Wes Brown, Gary Neville, all these other young, even Rio Ferdinand, what they learnt from Laurent Blanc in the training field, in the dressing room, that rubs off on youngsters. And if a young player can't learn from experienced players that have done it at the highest level, then they're not worth it. But Jurgen Klopp has seen how Alexander Arnold has done well, Robertson has done well. They've taken heed to what obviously Van Dijk has done. And let's be honest, Lovren isn't the greatest defender, but he's been around as well. Matip has been around. They might not be, the first names on the team sheet, but you can't knock their experience and what they've seen. And, for a one-off game, we've seen Lovren have good games for one-off games. So you can't doubt the guy. Okay, again, I said before, he said some really stupid things in the past, and he has made a lot of strange decisions defensively and has been quite erratic. But you know what? When he's had to step up, he's done it. He didn't do too badly in the Champions League final, if I remember rightly. So I don't see why he can't have a good game against Bayern. And let's be honest, if you stop Lewandowski, don't let him get anywhere near the goal, then you've cut off 50% of Bayern Munich's offensive threat. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I really don't think that Van Dijk one game would really make that much of a difference. To be fair.
Interesting. Okay, so that's a interesting perspective. Let's get to the other Twitter question we had here from @expatguna. Basically,
Ah.
yeah, he wanted. Do you recognize that?
Yeah. Good mate. Good mate.
All right, cool. So with what happened to Koulibaly last week in Milan, what's your idea for sorting out racial abuse in the stands? Is locking the fans out for 2 games enough? What do you think about denying transfer activity for 2 windows to combat the problem? What do you make of those suggestions?
It's funny you asked that because it's funny DJ asked that because I spoke about this on my show on Thursday. We spoke about the Koulibaly incident, and we spoke about playing behind closed doors, but that's been done time and time again. And we hear that old adage, "Oh well, you're punishing everyone, not the ones that are making the racial slurs." But at the same time, the way I see it, and as we all agreed, dock teams points, dock them 10 points, 10 points, 15 points, 20 points, because that's the only way you're going to hurt them. Because if you dock teams points, then the fans will be less inclined to do that. Trust me. Because it's going to hurt them long term. Put it this way, imagine Napoli are chasing for the Serie A title, the Scudetto. Imagine, I know they're miles behind at the moment. Imagine if it comes down to the last game of the season and there's a point in it. If they got deducted 10 points and they lose the Serie A title by a point or 2 points or 3 points, can you imagine? Can you imagine what that would mean? This is what I'm talking about. But these football associations are too scared to make these decisions or to really hit teams hard because it will hurt teams financially and they'll end up at the arbitration of sport and you'll end up at European Union and then the legal fees and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to be a big hoo-ha. As I said, these FAs are too scared to implement harsh fines. And, if you look at the work that, say, Kick It Out have done, which is a charity in the UK that focuses on kicking racism out of football. I mean, they did a study and it was like 54% of fans have actually witnessed racial abuse at matches. It's ridiculous. I mean, they did the study with like 27,000 supporters from 38 countries, and 54% of them have witnessed racial abuse. I mean, that's disgusting. So why aren't the football associations in Italy or in the UK hurting these teams? What happened with Raheem Sterling the other week was absolutely disgusting. This was front row stuff as well. It wasn't like the guy was like fifth or sixth row back and he was picked out by the camera. He was at the front row, mate. Now, if you turn around and say to Chelsea, right, we're deducting you 10 points or 15 points, and if this happens again, well, we're going to relegate you. Can you imagine? But they won't do that because Chelsea bring in money, Napoli bring in money, Inter bring in money, and they won't do it because they're too scared.
I mean, all that is very well said. I mean, I really like those suggestions. And yeah, I think that might be the only way to get it out. Is there anything else that can be done that you think they could realistically do?
No, because you know what? If you shut down certain parts of the ground, people are still going to be able to get in.
Yeah.
You know, if I mean, what did they do with the Koulibaly thing? Oh, well, we're going to 2 games behind closed doors, and the third game, the Curva are going to be banned from it. Big deal. So what? You're stopping people from watching the game. Big deal, because they're still going to watch it on the telly, aren't they? They're still going to watch it at a bar. They're still going to watch it at a pub or whatever. But dock them 10 points and see what happens. Because I'll tell you this for now. If someone shout out racial abuse at Koulibaly and then they deducted it into 10 points, best believe the guy ain't going to be waking up, alive the next morning. He'll probably have a horse's head in his bed,
Yeah.
So honestly, if you hit them where it hurts, trust me, you're gonna kick it out as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah, and at that point,
and the thing is, you talk about it being educational. Yeah, fair enough. You can educate people, and I know it's a 2018, and we all know about homophobia, racism, what kind of stuff, and you can educate people because people aren't born racist. It's something that's drummed into them. But I'll tell you this for now: when you start docking teams points, you're gonna see it kicked out of football straight away. Mark my words. But as I said, going back to what I said before, they're too scared to do it because money makes it go around, makes the game go around.
Absolutely. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, my fault for rambling on.
No. All I was trying to say is that fans will end up policing themselves, which is what your point was, and that's really what you need to incentivize them to police themselves. And so, yeah, I fully agree and support that suggestion. So love it. Don't have a great transition out of that because that is such a very serious conversation. It's something that absolutely needs to be addressed. So let's just change gears a little bit. And I'm over on the other side of the Atlantic, over in the U.S. And so I'm always curious to hear perceptions of soccer in this country from people outside of this country. So whether it's our domestic league, what do you think of our player quality of the players playing over in England? We don't have too many at this point, which is a little bit disappointing, but we have a ton over in Germany at this point. And then what do you think kind of our national team? So, just overarching, what do you think about soccer, in America?
The thing is, in Europe, we're very, how can I put it? What's the word? We kind of look down on leagues outside of Europe for some strange reason because, they feel that the quality isn't as good. They feel that the commentary or people's opinions or the way it goes, or even like MLS is still seen as some sort of retirement home, which it isn't. I you can tell from my name I'm not English. I come from a Greek Cypriot background. I follow the Cypriot league. It's not great, but we've seen some fair decent footballers playing out in the Cypriot league, and there's still some good footballers playing out there now. And MLS, I try to watch it as much as I possibly can. I know, Atlanta did a very remarkable job winning the MLS. Was it? I think they've only been around 5 years or something along those lines, haven't they? And,
2 years.
2 years. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was longer than that, to be fair. I thought, weren't they, didn't have a different name before, or are they just brand new? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know better than I do.
Soccer in this country is very strange. So Atlanta has had teams before, but this incarnation has only played in MLS for 2 years.
For 2 years, right.
Their expansion was announced, and so the club was technically, formed in quotation marks maybe 3 to 4 years ago. And, that's when they hired Darren Eales, who's former Tottenham, front office person, and they started to build out their backroom staff and then started to acquire players and coaches and all that. But their playing just started in last year.
Well, there you go. See, and to win MLS in their second full season is remarkable. And Tata Martino did a fantastic job. Almiron was an absolute revelation. And to bring in Frank de Boer as his replacement, that's a great move. It's a great move. I know de Boer didn't have a great time at Crystal Palace, but again, this guy is a big name, and I'm pretty sure they'll come close to winning MLS next season. And look, I've been watching it from afar. I've taken a bit of an interest in it, especially because I've got a couple of friends that I've played in MLS. I've got a friend, Richie Ryan, that's just left Cincinnati. He's a good lad, and he's looking for a new club at the moment. Who else? Mark Briggs was at Real Monarchs as head coach in USL. Neil Collins, that's at Tampa Bay. Not Tampa Bay. It is Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Rowdies, isn't it? Tampa Rowdies, yeah. And also, I think there was the NASL at the time. I remember there was what's that team called again? That Kleberson played for a while, and then they disbanded. Amari was there for a while. God, the name's gone out.
Miami FC.
No. They don't.
Not the Cosmos.
I forget the name of the team now. It's just gone out of my head. But yeah, so no, I've taken a bit of an interest in it, to be fair, and I think the quality is getting better. I'd probably say it's about championship level, UK championship, the English championship level, but it's getting better. And let's be honest, it's not just the money that brings these players in; it's the draw of playing in the United States. And let's not make any bones about it. If soccer continues to evolve in the US, the United States will be a major force at world football level. Because you've got the resources, you've got the players there, and you can tell that the sport is still evolving out there. And I know that you got NFL and NBA; they're the two major sports. I think hockey as well, aren't they? Isn't that another major sport? Baseball, yeah. But you got the World Series, and you only play it in the United States.
I know some of those. I trust me, I'm on the same page. I don't know why they call it the World Series.
But no, I mean, listen, it's a developing league, and as I said before, the Europeans are very stuck up when it comes to this. They turn their nose up at it, but I enjoy it, and you do get a lot of gems. I mean, let's be honest. You had that Nike 40 program, which unearthed a lot of players. I think Clint Dempsey came from that, and Josie Altidore. Who else? But we've also had players from America playing in the Premier League way before MLS did its whole rebrand. We had Kobe Jones at Coventry City, Roy Wegerle. Who else?
John Harkes.
John Harkes. Yeah, John Harkes, another person I know quite well. I completely forgot to mention John, actually. But yeah, so we've been blessed with a lot of players from the United States playing out here, and as I said before, Klinsmann came in. He didn't do a great job, but he's kind of set a standard there, and I just think that if people buy into the product, buy into the sport, and realize that you can make something of it, I wouldn't put it past the United States to be world champions within the next 40 years. I know it's a long way away, but you just never know with football.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Being a fan, but that was all music to my ears. Real quick, Kleberson played for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers.
Fort Lauderdale Strikers. That's
there
it.
We go.
That's it.
Before I ask my final question, is there anything that I didn't ask, something that you wanted to talk about, or anything like that?
Oh, do you know what? I think I've been talking too much. I've been boring your listeners.
Not at all. This has all been fantastic. I'm loving this interview.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, mate. It's been a pleasure. What about you? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Come on, where's your show going in 2019? I need to know your targets, mate. Come on.
Yeah, so we're gonna hopefully do more of these interviews, get a lot more guests, try to broaden out, try to attract different people. We're gonna have at least 2 shows per week. We started the second show per week, about a month or 2 ago, and so hopefully, those will be leveraged and we'll be able to keep growing from that perspective. We've had a little dip in our listeners over the holidays and things like that, so hopefully we can get back those listeners, continue to grow on social media, and then hopefully big things for Bros Talking Soccer in 2019.
Well, look, I hope you guys continue, mate, because I'll tell you what, you guys are doing a remarkable job at the moment. I can tell how passionate you are about the game. And it's a breath of fresh air because, let's be 100% honest, in the UK, people kind of frown upon Americans talking about soccer because of obviously you call it soccer for a start. But at the same time, it's great. I love it because, it's a universal game. It's universal language. I'm going to give you an example. When I went to Moscow for the Champions League final in 2008, right, I met local Russian people that wanted to talk to us because we were Man United fans. If I was a tourist, just there for a walk around Red Square to see Lenin's, whatever, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't want to talk to me. But the moment they saw that Man United scarf, that was like, right, we latch onto them. I've been to Dubai and spoken to people that love soccer. In fact, a good friend of mine that I met out in Dubai, he's Egyptian. He knows Mo Salah's brother. It's funny. We've been really close mates, and it's all because of football, because we were playing FIFA. We were playing FIFA at this kids play area, because he was working there, and my daughter was playing Lego and all that kind of stuff, and I was playing FIFA with him when I should have been looking after her. But anyway, that's another story. And we just got talking. It's a universal language. Anyone can talk about football, and this is why I find it difficult talking to people that don't like football, because it's like, well, that's the common denominator that helps start conversations, for me anyway. So when work colleagues that don't talk about football, I struggle to have any conversation with them. But mark my words, when there's someone in there that's an Arsenal fan or a Man United fan, or loves the game, I love talking about it, because I can go on all day. As you can tell, we've been banging on for an hour.
Right about, yeah, no, I love that too, and I love that you're receptive to whether it's Americans and also just other fans, and so that's all music.
Mate, I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see what that USL rebrand will do.
Me too.
It's remarkable. I know that the last, was it the Division League 2? Is that like an under 23 league or something like that?
Yeah, basically. So it's, for summertime for college kids often.
Yeah, and that's a great idea, because I know you got college soccer. And I was talking to Tim Hankinson the other week. There's a Chattanooga Red Wolves, and he's really excited about it, about the rebrand and everything. And it's great, because I love the fact that your country is actually embracing it, and you're not just seeing it as a money making tool. Everyone is buying into it. Your attendances are up. Fans are turning up to these USL games. 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 fans. That was unheard of 10, 15 years ago. It just shows you the strides that the sport is making. And, people could talk about the Premier League being the most entertaining. But, I'll tell you what, there have been a lot of MLS games that you could say that are entertaining. 4 goals in them, 5 goals in them. And I'll tell you what, there have been times I've won quite a bit of money at bookies, because putting 2.5 goals per games at these ones. So, yeah, thank you very much, MLS.
Yeah, and I'm just enjoying the whole building all of the infrastructure and being alive and watching all of this kind of develop. And so, all that kind of leads into, so we've been very positive on this podcast, which I absolutely love. So the way I like to end all these interviews is I like to ask, what's the thing you're most excited about happening in your soccer world? You can take that however direction you want to take it, fandom, communication, your podcast, what's the thing you're kind of most excited about happening?
It's funny you say it, because I was talking to my brother-in-law about it today, and I said to him, if you'd have told me in 2012 that I'd be doing all of this now, I'd have laughed in your face. I was on TalkSport the other day. I don't know if you've heard of TalkSport, but it's the UK's biggest sports station. I made 3 appearances on it, and they've invited me because the presenter knows my show. I'm obviously doing something right for them to be asking me on. I've had opportunities coming on other podcasts such as yours, other ones, and I just enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking about football. I enjoy, interacting with people about the game, listening to people's views, hearing different opinions, and it's great. It's refreshing, because, as I said, when I was younger, I'd be going to the pub and listening to the same voices all the time and having arguments with the same people, and it's the same discussion over and over again. But when you get involved in social media and meeting people such as yourself from across the pond, and you hear different views and opinions, it's great. It's fantastic, because you see a different side of things. We're here seeing it in front of us, whereas you guys are thousands of miles away, yet you still appreciate the game, you still know about it, and it's refreshing. So moving forward, I want to do more podcasts. Get you guys, let's do a podcast together. Sod it, let's do it. Let's arrange a date, put it in the diary, and we'll get Rodri on. We'll get my mate Jan. We'll get other guys on. I'll speak to some ex-pros, see if we can get you guys interviews as well, and we can do more networking, because that's what I love doing. I love getting people involved, helping people out, and working together with others. It's a joy. And again, as I said before, football is a universal language, man. They talk about music, and all that kind of stuff. Football should be used to prevent wars. That's what I think. Don't use guns, use a football. If you want to, that's the way I see it.
Absolutely. I love it. All that's fantastic stuff. And we're definitely game to do an interview. So we'll take that offline and figure something out. We have all of your stuff linked in our podcast description and podcast show notes and video description. But can you tell people where to find you in case they only listen to this?
Aha. Well, if you visit FNX.Network, that's a website. That's the network that our shows are on. You can go on there, find Shoot the Defense. We're on iTunes. We're on Twitter at Shoot the Defense. We have a Facebook group page. So please feel free to join in because we do have a lot of people that talk a lot of rubbish on the page, and I need people to set them straight. I'm joking. I'm joking. Anyone that's listening knows that. I love everyone that listens to the show. It's humbling, man, because from having just your mum listening to the show to people that are on big networks saying, yeah, we like your product is a massive, massive feather in your cap. And, it just goes to show that if you believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing, the world is your oyster. I mean, just to let you in on something, I got an email from a high school about 3 days ago from their careers advisor saying, we heard about the stuff that you do, because I was born in that area, so they kind of know me quite well. And they're like, yeah, we know what you've been doing. You've been on TalkSport. You interviewed Pogba, all this kind of stuff. Would you like to give a speech in front of 240 students about where you've come from? Because I've come from a bit of an underprivileged background. So yeah, I'm very proud of what I've achieved. And if my experience, even though I'm not a household name yet, if this little bit of experience that I've had can influence 5-6 kids, I'm happy. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. And I would totally agree. You are well on your way, and hopefully 2019 brings more of the continued growth, and you become a household name sooner rather than later. Stel, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh mate, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for listening. People that have joined us on YouTube, Dan, thank you for being here. Dan said, keep up the great work.
Thank you, Dan. Top man.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being here, and we will talk to you soon. Say, everybody.